Jamie's wrong all the time with this stuff because he only Googles these lefty, liberal fake news sites.
Snopes?
Snopes is a fake news site. They get busted all the time for fake news. Just Google it, and don't interrupt Kyle anymore.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my almost 80,000 regulars. If you're not on board, sort that out by hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss out on my uploads. Now, if you're like me and you overanalyze everything you see in life, you've probably wondered about the relationship between Joe Rogan and his producer, Jamie Vernon. People speculate about how much Joe pays him. Some people don't even know what Jamie looks like. But one of the most interesting things for me is the dynamic between the two of them when Jamie knows Joe is wrong but has to wait and let him figure it out for himself. Have you ever had a boss who was always wrong about stuff, but his ego was so big that you couldn't call him out? Instead, you just have to wait for him to figure it out on his own and pretend that he's a genius when he finally does. Well, that's exactly what happened on this week's JRE episode with comedy veteran Ron White. But the difference is the interactions between Rogan and Jamie are there for tens of millions of people to see. And trust me, this is absolute comedy gold. But what makes this so much funnier than it already is the fact that this whole interaction was actually clipped up by JRE and uploaded to YouTube. So you know how whenever a new episode drops on Spotify, they upload a couple of clips to YouTube just to send traffic over to Spotify? Well, for this episode, they clipped up the worst part of the podcast and put it on YouTube. I mean, the secondhand embarrassment on this one was huge. Let me explain. So, you know how Rogan has a hard-on over YouTube censorship policies? Well, in true Rogan style, he saw some headline or social media post and went all guns blazing on his podcast without actually having fully understood what he was talking about. Take a look.
And they were talking about what they would do for a significant cultural event. Let me see if I can...
This is a new policy going into effect February 2024. Clearly defines what constitutes a, quote, sensitive event for purposes of prohibiting certain exploitative or insensitive ads and content.
Yeah, that's it.
While Google already had policies in place for ads and YouTube monetization, this expands the restrictions to Google's publisher network as well.
And so it was defined in a certain way. See if you could pull up what it actually says. Because the way it was defined, what disturbed me was that it's very blanket.
All right, let me get you up to speed. So Google, who owns YouTube, has just updated their guidelines for advertisers when it comes to using sensitive events in their advertising. But the key is this doesn't affect the actual content on YouTube, it only affects the ads. So if you're a company that makes ads like Coca-Cola or Apple, or you're an advertising agency that creates ads for companies to put on YouTube, you're no longer allowed to exploit sensitive events in your advertising. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, not for our boy Rogan, because you see, what he likes to do is take little bits of information, blow it completely out of proportion, disregard the context, and create his own narrative to satisfy his pre-existing beliefs. This is commonly referred to as confirmation bias.
The thing is, like, whatever they're trying to say and whatever they're trying to do to make the online world a nicer place. Right. You got to be really careful with saying things like that because sensitive is a weird term. If someone is violently opposed
to who?
Right. Also, what someone is violently opposed to something that's happening? Like, think about one or many of the military conflicts around the world. Don't pick a side. What if someone is violently opposed to these people dying and losing their lives, and they're talking about it? Is that an insensitive piece of content that can now be censored by a new policy? Is that what it is? Or is they just going to demonetize it, which they've kind of always done?
So again, right there, Rogan thinks Google's new guidelines will affect content creators' ability to talk about sensitive events when it really only affects advertisers. But lucky he's got young Jamie there to help him out, right?
I think this was talking about people who are making ads using their platform, not people who are hosting content on their platforms.
Say it again?
I got to admit, I'm a little lost on this one.
I think I see.
So if any of the listeners out there are also a little confused as to...
No, it's about them having the ability to censor you.
Right.
So if you do the Ron White show on YouTube,
right,
which is owned by Google, if they decide that this something of whatever you're doing is in somehow or another offensive,
they would want to edit it.
Nah, don't worry, Ron. We're not the ones who are confused, only Joe is. And even after Jamie explained it to him, Rogan went on to give a completely unrelated example of Ron White having his YouTube show censored for discussing a sensitive event, when, as we all know, including young Jamie, Google's new policy has absolutely nothing to do with content creators, just advertisers. So let's see if Jamie's second attempt to explain it to Joe gets through to him. I mean, surely he'll understand the second time, right?
I don't know what they're saying they can and can't do.
I think it's making ads. I don't know if it has to do with the content. That's on YouTube. I think this policy content change is for people who use the Google Ads platform and create ads like this one I'm showing you right here, so that you can't abuse it.
You can't monetize it. But look how it's phrased, please. Go back to the top sentence. So look at...
Which one?
It says the updated policy provides practice including price gouging, misdirected traffic, and victim blaming during sensitive events. I'm with the first ones. Price gouging, misdirected traffic, I'm with those. But victim blaming during sensitive events, that one gets touchy. Because, what do we...
It's just using the ads, though. It's like making some weird ad to pop up to get you to click on something that's going to pop up on content that might be about that event or anything like that.
I understand. But victim blaming, the thing about victim blaming is you can do it both ways, right? Like victim blaming, like with Hamas and Palestine and Israel, you could victim blame on both sides. You could say the Israelis were doing this, and that's why Hamas had to attack. And then you say Hamas attacked, and that's why the Israelis are doing this, and you people should have known better, and you people should have known better. That's victim blaming.
Sure.
You got to let people talk.
Yeah.
And if talking looks like victim blaming until people work it out,
then why not allow it?
you can't just stop people from talking. So what are we saying? Are we saying that it's just they can't monetize that? Well, then what happens is if you're not monetizing stuff, you let people know that unless they self-censor, it's going to cost them financially.
Wow, he really doesn't get it. Jamie literally explained it to him 2 more times for a grand total of 3 explanations, and Rogan still thinks the new policy is about demonetizing creators. Bro, it's got nothing to do with content creation. They're just talking about ads. So, because Jamie has tried to explain it to Joe 3 times without any success, he ends up pulling up some examples for him so he can slowly figure it out himself. Honestly, this is funnier than anything Rogan has ever done on stage. He's the funniest when he's trying to be serious. I am so here for this. All right, let's roll the tape. You guys are going to love this.
Here's their examples they give.
Okay, here's some examples. All right, violations. Okay, what is examples? Non-exhaustive. Ads that claim victims of sensitive event were responsible for their own tragedy or similar instances of victim. Okay, ads. Yeah, so it's just about ads.
Yeah, at least for now it is. Maybe they could switch it and be like now all content, but
that's completely reasonable. Right. If it's just about ads, that's completely reasonable. Right.
Oh man, that's so good. I seriously watched that clip about 200 times now, and it gets me every single time. Oh, God love him. But wait, it gets better. After he realizes what's really going on, he proceeds to not only agree with the policy, but he starts saying how reasonable and important it is, and everyone agrees. Brilliant.
Yeah, I guess you should want to be able to control how f***ed up the ads are. Because that's kind of, is it?
It's just that. They're just like, you can still use other parts of the internet that can still.
But you can't use propaganda. You can't lie.
Yeah, you can't use Google ads, which is the biggest part of the internet advertising world.
Right. They shut you out.
Do it somewhere else is all they're saying.
Right.
Well, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
As long as they're not doing that with the actual content of the podcast. Because I do know that they demonetize. They demonetize people all the time if you talk about certain subjects. It's always been a problem.
And in true Joe Rogan style, even though he completely misunderstood what he was initially so passionate about, he reverts back to the hypothetical situation and says how much of a problem it is, even though he's now realized that he was wrong. Oh man, these are the best episodes. There's nothing quite like watching Rogan going hard in the paint over an issue, only for young Jamie to pull him up and fact-check his claims. And it reminded me of an even better example when Rogan saw some random video about a boxing bout between a father and a son, where the father absolutely smashes the son to pieces, which almost brought Joe to tears. Just look how upset he gets.
I saw a video today of a boxing match between a father and a son. It made me so sad. Because there's this young kid. He looks like he's probably like 17 or 18. And the father's 42. And the father beats the shit out of him. I mean, like, dings him in the head and keeps punching him. I'm like, that's your son. That's your son. And we're watching you beat your son up, because I get your son probably got with you, and he celebrates after he knocks his son out. It made me so sad. Because first of all, I'm like, that kid has brain damage now, 100%. Maybe it's just a little. Maybe he'll be fine. Maybe he'll get over it. But maybe you f***ed him up. That can happen too. He might be depressed from now on after that. It might fuck up his pituitary gland. It happens to people. And you just did that to your son. You're supposed to, like, touch him up. You're supposed to not even hurt him. Like, slam him in the body a little bit. Like, you think he can fight? Okay, dude. Okay, let's have a little boxing match. You don't tee off on your son's face on television. It's crazy.
How old was the kid?
Kid looks young. To me, he looks like, he could be 20. He could be 19. He looks young. He's real skinny. And the father's kind of jacked. Not too jacked, but, he's fit. And he could fucking punch. He knows how to box. And the son doesn't look like he has any idea what the fuck he's doing.
Hey, look, Rogan's right. The story almost brought me to tears as well. Except he's completely wrong. They're not a father and a son. They were two YouTubers who called each other out and ended up in the boxing ring together. Oh, poor Joe. He's so easily duped. Thank God for young Jamie, though, huh?
I don't know what the thing was. Like, someone sent it to me, and they were, like, cheering that this old guy knocked his son out. I was like, you guys are crazy. Wow. That you failed. You failed as a man. Yeah, this is it.
That's not exactly what was happening.
It's not? What is it?
They're not father-son.
Oh, why does it lie?
Because
it says father knocks out son in celebrity boxing match.
Gotta get somebody to click on this.
Oh.
This was like a YouTuber thing. This guy's a YouTuber, and he's a YouTuber.
I'm such a sucker. They got me.
I hate that.
Okay, now I'm not sad anymore. So now I'm like, yeah, old guy who fucked up that young punk who's talking shit about him.
Ah, there we go. Order has been restored. But in true Joe Rogan style, he just cannot let it go. So he goes back to the whole father and son thing and continues his rant about how bad that would be.
If that was actually his son, that would be the saddest shit of all time. Because if you're a guy and you could box like that, you could punch like that, you've been boxing, right? So you know that people that have brain damage, you know the consequences of getting punched in the face. But if it's just some cocky kid who wants to box with some dude, I'm all in.
YouTuber.
So now I'm in. Isn't that interesting? Just all about the relationship the two people have with each other. I want love whenever possible. But sometimes people talk and they need to get cracked.
Ah, that's too funny. But the thing is, these two examples that I showed you just now, the one with Ron White and the one with Red Band, I mean, there's no harm done, right? It's not misinformation or anything stupid like that. I think people are too quick to jump on Rogan's back about this kind of stuff. I honestly just think it's funny. It's like all those times when Rogan reads a headline for an article, but he actually hasn't read it, and then he brings it up on his podcasts and gives us his hot take without knowing any of the facts or any of the context. Only for Jamie to pull up the actual article so Joe can read it out loud like he's in middle school and realize he completely misread the whole situation. I live for those moments. They bring me so much joy and happiness, and that's what makes JRE such a good podcast. There's absolutely zero preparation or planning. It's all about just jumping on the mic and saying stuff out loud with a complete disregard for accuracy or facts. Because how boring would it be if Joe actually read stuff beyond the headline, or read one of Google's new guidelines for himself, which took me about 7 seconds to read and understand? No, that would be too much effort. Instead, Joe likes to rely on text messages from his friends or a short clip that he saw on Twitter. And you've got to give him credit though. Joe's a busy guy. It's completely irrational to think that he would put more than 5 minutes of effort into his podcast, even though it's generated hundreds of millions of dollars for him and basically functions as his full-time job. Why would he spend time understanding things like context and facts before he broadcasts his half-baked opinions to tens of millions of people? It just doesn't seem like a good use of his time. Remember when he had Elon on his podcast just after the Falcon 9 landing in 2021? One of the most seminal moments in aerospace engineering witnessed by millions of people around the world, but not Joe. Nah, he just figured out he'd have Elon on his podcast and ask him to explain it, because, that's real conversation.
So what happens to the first, when you take off and it separates into stages, how does the first stage get reused?
Well, have you seen how the Falcon 9 stages work, where they come back and land?
No.
You haven't seen that?
No.
Wow.
So does it come down with parachutes? Does it how does it land?
No, it lands propulsively with the thrusters. With the engines.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's designed to take off. Here it is.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So that is the bottom of the rocket that launches it straight up, and then afterwards it comes down and lands like that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
See, Joe's got more important things to do than prepare for a guest, even if it's the richest man in the world who just achieved something never done before in the history of rocket launching. Rogan's too busy doing things like watching John Wick while he's working out, or listening to his boomer tunes in the sauna, or hanging out in the green room at the comedy mothership. We really shouldn't be so hard on Rogan. Honestly, you guys need to check yourselves. It's getting out of hand. Just let the guy be. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're just having a laugh today, nothing too serious. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, consider jumping on board so you get all my uploads right there in your feed. Shout out to all my regulars. Love you guys. I'll catch you in the next one.
You still have plantar fasciitis?
Horribly.
Are you still running?
Yeah, I have to.
You have to?
I just love it.
Why don't you get one of them zero runners? Have you seen that thing that I have out here?
Is it a Woodway?
No. It's
It's weird.
It's sort of like an
Sorry.
sort of like an elliptical machine.